John Ziegler writes, the data as well as basic logic now makes it overwhelmingly obvious that nowhere near as many people who tested positive for the virus recently are going to die as did when this nightmare began. While this development has gotten scandalously little news coverage, the daily numbers of deaths of COVID has been declining with remarkable consistency for well over 2 months now. On April 21st, the 7-day rolling average for deaths of COVID was 2,225, according to the Worldometer's tracker. He says in the New York Post, as of this writing, it is down to 511, which in a country of almost 330 million people is statistically extremely small. For perspective, this time of year, about 1,400 people die in nursing homes every single day. Now, he writes that on April 20, let me give you those numbers again. April 21st, the 7-day rolling average for deaths with or of COVID was 2,225. He said as of this writing, it's down to 511. I think yesterday it was around 300. Total deaths in the country. Ziegler writes, presumably a big part of the reason the media has essentially disregarded what should be very welcome news is that there is a fear expectation, for some partisans even at least a hint of hope, that the declining trend on deaths will eventually reverse itself, especially with new cases rising so dramatically. This might be a valid cause for pumping the brakes on reporting positive news. Except we now have strong reasons to radically reevaluate what these new case numbers really mean. And now he gets to testing, which is what we're talking about now. Back in March and early April, because testing was far too limited, it meant that if you were getting tested, that you at least had a good reason to think you might have the virus. Consequently, the rate of positive tests was high. Those who were found to have the virus were almost universally sick, with a large percentage going to the hospital. A much smaller, but all too high, fraction eventually died. However, since then, several key circumstances have changed for the better. Testing has now become extraordinarily widespread and almost commonplace, with the positive rate in most of the country shrinking rapidly, and a far greater of those positive tests coming from people who are not actually sick. He takes a shot at Trump here. He says he's not a Trump fan. He writes, as much of a liar as President Trump is, just because he says something does not automatically transform a fact into a myth. In rational world, he writes, for a portion of these people, getting tested as positive can actually be fantastic news. Not only do they now know to be extra careful in staying away from the more vulnerable, but they also presumably have at least some level of immunity. However, it's not just this important part of the story that the news media has ignored. Because those testing positive now are far younger, because our treatments have naturally gotten better, there's a reasonable chance that the daily death rate will not significantly increase. He says there are those who will understandably say that this conclusion is premature and that in 2 weeks, which is inevitably when all the doomsday predictions are due to finally come true, that will change. We keep hearing that over and over. 2 weeks. Wait 2 weeks. You'll see. You'll see. He writes, while there may be a slight increase soon, one which the media will surely jump all over, the data gives us reason for legitimate optimism that, once again, the most dire predictions will not come close to fruition. He says, there is, of course, a significant lag from the time someone tests positive and when they eventually pass away. But we are now 16 full days from when this surge in new cases began. Now, remember, he wrote this July 6th. I presume he penned this July 5th. So really we're 18 days from when the surge in new cases began. And during the first wave, there was no indication that it would take that long for an increase in cases to translate into a rise in deaths. On April 4th, we spiked to about 35,000 new cases in a day. April 7th, we hit a new high in daily deaths. So on May 6th, we reached our highest daily death count. Theoretically, we should be seeing an increase right now. But there's another reason, he writes, to believe that a large reversal of the trend may not be coming. Sweden, a country much maligned in the media because they dared to not lock down by government mandate, they have new case and death charts which look remarkably similar to ours. And their daily death rate has recently been down to single digits. Shh, he writes, shh, please don't tell the news media. He says, for the record, hospitalizations are an extremely key metric here. And there is cause for concern on that front in a couple of key states. However, other than ICUs in Arizona and small sections of Texas, contrary to the perception being created in the media, the hospitalization situation is currently nowhere near crisis mode. There are no situations right now where those with the virus are not able to get needed hospital care. Ziegler in the New York Post writes, this crisis is obviously real and it is not nearly over yet, but the news media making the situation appear far worse than it actually is might help keep Trump's fading election chances, as he writes it, down, but it is greatly harming the country. Not that such a reality matters to the news media anymore.